So quite a while ago I made a video called I Want Fantasy Books to Change, and to make it brief, I said that as much as I love long epic fantasy series, I feel that the shorter and more episodic books are a severely underrated and underused method in storytelling in the fantasy genre. I did go into a lot more detail in that video, and if you want to watch it, you can find it on my channel. But basically, I would love to see way more fantasy series that focus on shorter, more self-contained stories that eventually tie together into a bigger, high-stakes plot. This monster of the week style of story is super common when it comes to mystery and thrillers, think Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie, but is a lot more rare when it comes to fantasy, at least on the bestseller lists, even with gems like The Witcher to use as an example. Well, in the comments of that video, I got lots of recommendations. Thank you, by the way. The two most mentioned ones being Discworld and Dresden Files. So I decided to take you guys at your word and dive into one of these series. And here's how that went. What's shaking? My name's Cam, welcome back to another video. I was really genuinely excited to start reading Dresden Files by Jim Butcher for a lot of reasons. One, everyone has been hyping it up to me like it's the best thing since chicken and mayonnaise sandwiches. And two, because the titular character, Harry Dresden, has been compared a lot to my all-time favorite comic book character, this guy here, John Constantine. Both John and Harry Dresden are smart-talking, trenchcoat sporting wizards for hire that take on jobs solving the more supernatural branch of crimes that only they can handle. Although normally it's pretty strongly recommended to not refer to the Hellblazer as a wizard. I think he prefers a sorcerer or warlock. Speaking of supernatural, did you know that Castiel's look was directly inspired by Constantine? That's pretty cool. Anyway, as much as I love the loudmouthed Brit, this isn't a video about John Constantine. This video is about Harry Dresden. I read the first 3 books in the Dresden Files series, and I have quite a lot of thoughts so far. I won't be giving away any major spoilers, but I will be mentioning a few things that could fall into the, let's say, mild spoiler territory. So there's your warning. So there's currently 18 Dresden Files books if you include 15.5, which is a collection of even shorter adventures from the man himself, as well as 10 graphic novels and a 2007 TV show adaptation, which has been pretty divisive in its own right. I would recommend watching Daniel Green's video on that if you want the scoop. The books usually come in pretty short, usually at around the 80 to 90,000 word mark, so you can finish them in a couple of days easily if you read fast enough. And the stories themselves are about a wizard with a habit for dressing like a Red Dead Redemption character named Harry Dresden. So from what I understand so far, the books follow almost entirely self-contained escapades where Harry will accept a job or a contract to deal with a supernatural threat. And the backdrop of this world is almost identical to our own, rather than a completely new and fictional world, making the Dresden Files an urban fantasy, or magical realism if you like. There's realistic depictions of regular police being out of their depth, secret societies of immortal elites, car problems. How much more relatable can you get? I'll talk about all this a bit more as we go on, but if you haven't read these books, that's all you really need to know to follow along with this video. As a Sherlock fan, as a Constantine fan, and as someone that's just been generally craving the monster of the week style of fantasy books, I was immediately sold on the premise of the Dresden Files, and I really couldn't wait to dive in. As of right now, I've read the first 3 books, one by audiobook, which I have a huge bone to pick with. I'll get to that. And if I was to summarize my experience so far in 3 words, it would be underwhelmed, but intrigued. There is a lot that these books do well, and so very much that at least these first 3 don't. I have had it drilled into me by now though, by a lot of people that the first 4 books of the Dresden Files are the weakest in the lot. From book 5 is where things really start to take off. In any other series, telling them that they have to read until book 5 for it to get good I wouldn't even bother, but in this case I'm going to make a special exception. I'm very willing to continue on. Don't get me wrong, I have no issue DNFing a book or a series, but I want so much to like the Dresden Files that not only am I okay with sticking with it, I'm genuinely excited to. There's one thing I want to mention and get out of the way right off the bat, because it's a type of thing that has a habit for starting fires when it comes to book discourse. The women in these first few books, especially the first 2, are not written great. Here's the thing, when the story is told through the lens of a character like Harry Dresden, a dude who literally describes himself as old-fashioned multiple times when a woman is introduced, I can understand there being a big focus on that woman's sex appeal. We're reading it from Harry's perspective, and let's be real, he's down bad. That brother's starving. So it makes sense that he's usually thinking about how sexually attracted he is to a female character. But here's the problem. So far, again, I'm 3 books in, so far it has been literally every single woman in these books. Every single one, without fail. I literally cannot think of one female character so far that hasn't been described like she just walked out of a shoot. I like there being sexy characters in stories. I like there being sexually promiscuous characters in stories. I encourage it. Should I cut that? But when it's this relentless, it just gets tiring. Some of these women are great, well-rounded, no pun intended, characters, but a lot of others are little more than the long-legged dames from the black and white noir films. And even in saying that and mentioning noir films, I get that that's a part of the aesthetic of these stories, but again, it's just like it's every single woman in these books. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, I'm going to optimistically assume that this focus on Harry Dresden being old-fashioned is a part of his character development throughout the series. It really seems like that's the intention, and it seems like that's what's starting to happen. In fact, that seems to be the entire purpose of the character Murphy, who is a female detective and a friend of Dresden's. Friend, quotation marks. He's learning quite bluntly that he needs to stop this old-fashioned protector role just because he's a dude and she's not. Although, speaking of Murphy, sometimes that message not only gets lost, but gets hurt when she does things that are just mind-bogglingly dumb. Like, for example, Dresden's in the middle of this big magic battle, and she will try to arrest him for lying to her, while the bad guy's still right there, just kind of like... Oi. And yeah, Dresden does, in a lot of instances, think that she's less capable of doing stuff, I would say because she's a woman. But she also starts to gaslight him in situations where that's obviously not the case. Like, she will be like, oh, you lied to me because I'm a woman and you think I can't handle this. And putting myself in his shoes, I'm like, dude, I lied to you because you keep charging headfirst into big, supernatural, dangerous fights with nothing but a gun and a pair of handcuffs, and then you try to use them on me. Anyway, I'm hoping as we read on, we get more women characters that aren't seconds away from sprinting out of the room so they can go grind a pillow. That's all. So the thing that frustrated me the most during my experience of reading these books, ironically has nothing to do with the actual story, the characters, or the writing. For some context, I listened to the second book as an audiobook. The books are narrated by James Masters, aka Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's pretty cool. There's even one part where he's narrating a young vampire dude with blonde styled hair. That gave me a pretty good laugh. James has a great voice for audiobooks, especially Harry Dresden. It's this deep, smoky, almost weary voice that just perfectly fits a grizzled wizard cowboy. I also really enjoy his voice for Bob, Harry's disembodied skull sidekick, even more. It's snarky, it's British, it always lightens the mood, but there is an issue, and it's a big issue, at least to me personally. The audio mixing on this audiobook was so bad. Every single time that James smacked his lips or gulped, you hear it all. It's like you're inside his throat. It's disgusting. Between every couple of words, you can hear the wet mouth sounds of the tongue moving around inside his mouth, you know?
It broadened his financial empire and put him into a position to gouge McFinn for as much money as he possibly could. Chauncey adjusted his wireframe spectacles.
I was literally listening to 90% of that book with my eyes tightly shut because it felt like I was strapped to the inside of a Danny DeVito ASMR microphone. So I had to look it up just to make sure it wasn't just me losing my mind about this, and a lot of people have brought it up. Apparently it's only an issue in the first 4 books before the audio mixing got passed off to a better company. It was so distracting that I kept missing huge chunks of the story, so then I'd have to go back and listen to the wet mouth sounds all over again. I really like Harry Dresden as a character, and I'm super excited to see where he goes from here. And that's despite the fact that if you put him in the ring with John Constantine, he would get rocked harder than Bryce Hall. Dresden is genuinely charming, likable, and not self-sacrificing to the point of being insufferable. It's a pet hate of mine when the hero seems utterly unafraid of putting their life in danger for someone else. And Dresden does do that, like he does risk his life for other people quite a lot. But he also curses himself black and blue every time he does, and he's constantly questioning whether he made the right decision when he does it. There are particular moments when he gets frustratingly mopey, especially in book 2, and his dynamic with side characters like Bob the Skull or Michael the Crusader are super endearing and always fun to read. On the topic of Michael, I really like his character and how well his role in the story fits with Dresden's. I'm usually not a fan of the righteous, holy warrior archetype, but Michael literally being powered by faith and Dresden surviving through cynicism is a nice blend. I do have to admit though, I am a little confused about the implications of God, heaven, and hell existing in this world that's filled with supernatural monsters and other dimensions, but it's not like a huge problem or anything. We'll see how that goes in the next books. Basically, Harry Dresden is just cool. Like, he just is. It's as simple as that. He looks cool, he does cool things, he makes a wizard's staff look like a cool weapon rather than just a light up walking stick. I dig him. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite fantasy protagonists. So let's rank the first 3 books in the Dresden Files: Stormfront, Full Moon, and Grave Peril. At the top, I would put Grave Peril. It still has a lot of issues and really drags in some spots, but it also had some of the most fun and exciting moments so far. Rocking up to a vampire masquerade ball in a $2 Halloween store vampire costume just to rile them up and make them angry. Hellblazer himself would be proud. Spot number 2 goes to Stormfront, the first book in the series. As far as introductions to the series goes, it wasn't horrible. The villain did feel truly dangerous and the pacing kept the energy up for me. Again, the way some of the side characters were written were unfortunate, but we did get another absolutely iconic moment, Dresden having a full-on magic fight with a demon wearing nothing but a towel. Absolute Chad move. Imagine trying to kill someone that is just one slip away from hanging tackle right in your face.
No. Wait.
Full Moon gets last place. Look, it's entirely possible that my experience with this book in particular was ruined because of the narration that I was talking about. This is the one I listened to as an audiobook. Looking back on it though, I just don't think it was very good. So it's a werewolf story and it just ended up getting way too convoluted and boring. There's basically this like turf war between a ton of different subspecies of werewolf, and as soon as I stopped bothering to keep track of which ones were which, I just stopped caring. All in all, 3 books in, I would say that Dresden is off to a bit of a rocky start, but I see the foundation here for a really great series, so I am going to keep reading them. And to be honest, I don't expect it's going to take me too long to get up to date as well, maybe like a couple of weeks. I have this kind of frustrating habit of getting really attached to characters like this, especially the cliche comic relief right-hand men like Bob. So if you stick around and subscribe to my channel, you will get to watch in real time as I become an obnoxious Dresden fanboy. Again, I love epic fantasies, but I think episodic fantasy is definitely my favorite of the fantasy subgenres. But with that said, have you read the Dresden Files? What do you think of it? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I make videos every single week on fantasy and horror books, so if that's your kind of thing, then I would love it if you stuck around. See you in the next one. Catch ya.